voter ID coming up. Do we really have Tom Weaver joining us next? That's what it says, cool. Tom Weaver.
Yeah, that's great.
Agree or disagree, 617. No, we're not doing that right now. We're going to continue our conversation on voter ID.
And we're going to talk to Tom Weaver. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, because he wants you to show an ID to vote.
He's very, very much involved in this movement, in this process.
Tom, can we see your ID, please?
I always show it. Every time I give a talk, I start out showing
You should. How do we know it's you?
Government-issued ID.
I know it's you because I recognize your voice.
And I recognize yours and yours, Todd, and Tom.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's too bad about Tom.
So tell me about the government issue ID. What is it that you actually show? Is it your driver's license? Is it something else? And what do you expect would be the standard that Massachusetts should establish here, Tom?
Well, right now, the standard for ID is anything. In fact, I could go vote using my next-door neighbor's utility bill.
Yeah.
And we need to get away from that. And the Massachusetts law right now, and Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when you go to the polls, you're supposed to bring a valid ID in case they ask you. That's part of the rules of going to vote.
Really?
And so what we want to do is, instead of making it the clerk may ask you to show your ID, we'd like the clerk to ask you to show your ID.
Yeah, so in Boston, we always have a police officer who has control of the voting book. Donna and I will go to vote together, and we'll identify ourselves and give our address. And, he looks it up and just draws a pencil through it. But as part of that process, you just have me show something, my driver's license or something else.
Yeah, we have a many government-issued photo IDs. You've got driver's license, you've got ID cards for benefits, you've got gun licenses, and you've got a passport. So we've got a lot of photo IDs that can identify us as who we are.
That's who we are, yeah.
And it makes no sense not to show them. And this law will cover 99. It's like ivory soap, and I know a lot of the younger listeners have no idea what ivory soap is, but 99.9% of all Americans have got a valid government-issued ID.
So we were talking with State Representative Vinny DiMacedo before, and he's pushing legislation in the legislature. Are you coordinating, or you have your own project going on? What are you working on?
Well, we've got a group. We're meeting tomorrow night. Well, it might be a video link, and we're going to draft it. We want to go to the representatives and show what we have, and just from you're allowed as a citizen to put an initiative before the court, and that's what we're doing. But we've also got like Representative Steve Levy and a bunch of others that have said they want to sign on to this and bring it forward.
All right. So your thing is showidtovote.com?
Yeah, the website is showidtovote.com, and it's not only identification, Todd, it's also show I deserve to vote. It's important that we start educating people that it's more than just going to the polls and being told who to vote for. That's, in my mind, that's as much of a fraud as stealing a vote. It's going to the polls and knowing how to fill out a ballot properly and who the candidates are and what the issues. So it runs the gamut. We're starting a 501c4.
And you actually want people to know what they're doing when they get there?
Yeah, I think it's good. It always amazes me when, after an election, you get these groups of people that are trying to determine the intent of the voter.
Yeah.
It's like younger kids, Johnny Carson and Karnak the Magnificent. He's voting for this person. If you don't fill it out right, a good standard is if you don't do it correctly, it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. Sure.
It's a real easy standard, and it's not subject to any interpretation.
Tom,
is it right or not at all?
As you've been working on this issue, thinking about it, looking at what other states do, and talking to other interested folks, I'm curious, have you come across any, not that it's been persuasive, but at least any rational argument in opposition where people say, gee, Tom, yeah, I hear you, but, and then they go into some kind of relatively reasonable, if not persuasive argument?
Well, the persuasive argument is that you're going to disenfranchise a few. And so the counter to that is that we would offer, you get provisional ballots. But nobody has an issue with that. We were watching polls in one of the places, and it was funny. The poll warden asked me if I had any more of my show ID to vote buttons. And I said, sure, how many you want? He said 10, and I brought them in and gave it to him. And I turned around, and all of the poll workers now had the buttons.
Oh, that's great.
And for the rest of the day, everybody that came in to vote went, "Oh, show your ID? Oh, okay." And they reached in their pocket and showed it.
Well, I wonder, you hear this argument all the time about the people who would be oppressed by this law. I wonder if anyone's ever produced data to support the notion that there would be some people who would be oppressed by the law. And by the way, you raise a good point that they do this already at the polls, that if there's some dispute about whether it's appropriate for you to vote or not, they can always give you a ballot, you vote, they hold on to it, and they figure it out later.
Yeah, it's close to that. What they do is if you challenge the vote, you put CV and number it, and it goes into the tally, and only if it's close do they pull it out and look at the reason.
So they count it unless there's reason not to. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they count it. The only ones that aren't counted at the beginning are the provisional ballots. And 3 states take the provisional ballot, and they give you 3 or 4 days to come and prove who you are. And again, laws are supposed to be for the majority. You can't solve everything by a law.
Right. You can't fix everybody's issues.
Right.
At least we can't afford to keep trying. I know that the liberal mentality is try to solve everybody's problem, and that's the government's job, but we got to stop doing that. All right, Tom Weaver, the website is showidtovote.com.
Right.
Stay in touch. Let us know how things go.
And a Facebook, same name, showidtovote.com. And please, if anybody has any questions or wants more, send an email to info@showidtovote.com.
All righty. Thank you, Tom Weaver. Good to talk with you again.
Yeah, and stay in touch. Stay in touch on the issue. It'll be interesting to watch how this goes. There'll be hearings over the next few months, and then some other drama upstate. It'll be good to follow.
It shows you how rational Americans have been sitting in the background ignoring what's going on for too long. This should not be a difficult fight. But the trouble is leftist radical wackos have been allowed to gain enough footing and to feel enough confidence in their anti-American ideas that they get away with thinking they're legitimate. I mean, opposing this is not legitimate, it seems to me. If somebody's got an argument, let's hear it. 617-266-6868.
And that's why I wanted to ask Tom, because he's been out there on the point on this for a long, long time, and he's been going around giving lots of speeches. And inevitably, somebody at some point has to have raised an objection, or at least
they raise the objection.
I'd like to hear it.
They say you're going to be denying poor, older people of color. They try to make it racist, ageist, and cultural, socioeconomicist, all at once, because those are the cards they know how to play. But I've never heard anyone actually make an argument that says this portion of the population doesn't have an ID.
And whether you're liberal or progressive, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or something in between, I think all of us should bristle at the notion of elections being diluted, being stolen, being marginalized because people who don't live in that district show up, or people in number. If you go and vote 15 times and Cooksey goes and votes once, that's just not right. So there should still be a sense of right and wrong in all of this.
Some people prefer wrong because that helps their political party that begins with a D. I'm not going to point at anyone.
Aspersions.
No, I don't want to point, but certain people whose party starts with a D feel strongly that fixing elections is the way to go. Mike, good morning. You're on WRKO.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning, Mike.
Hey, not only do I agree with this thoroughly, but I think we should take it to the next step because 20 years ago when I got married, I went into the city of Cambridge polling offices to register to vote with my new wife.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you want to see my ID?" And the lady said to me, "I'm not allowed to ask you for it, but if you want to show it to me, that would be nice." So I think we should do it upon registering to vote also.
Are you wishing now that you'd shown a fake ID?
Well, I don't want to admit to ever living in the People's Republic of Cambridge, but
I agree with you, Mike. By the way, on the registration,
thank you, Mike.
I absolutely agree with you because that's the beginning of the whole process, and that's where if you're going to insist on legitimacy, not to the marriage, not to the institution of marriage. If you're going to insist on legitimacy for the voting process, let's have it apply right when you go to register for the first time. Bang! Show something that says this is who you are.
He said that when he went into the clerk's office in Cambridge, she said she wasn't allowed to ask him for an ID. Now, why would that be?
It'd be a specific prohibition, maybe a City of Cambridge ordinance.
A wacko leftist thing or requirement?
Or it could be. It could be
WL, wacko leftist 101. Ordinance 101.
Or it could be some obscure provision or regulation that came out of the state. I just don't know. I don't think that would be the case, but it might more likely be a Cambridge ordinance.
Phil, good morning to you, sir.
Hi, good morning, guys.
Good morning, Phil.
I'm just a little confused. I've been listening for a little while. How prevalent is voter fraud in this state that we need to get the legislature to act to solve this problem? Is there a serious voter fraud? People putting names up that don't belong to them to impact elections?
That's a really good question, Phil. Thank you for that.
I think there's a fear of it, Phil, more than the actuality.
There's also anecdotes. We hear constantly about problems, but I don't know that anyone's done research or has quantifiable proof of a problem.
And Vin DiMacedo, the rep who joined us earlier, said, look, there's a pending election right now from central Massachusetts. One vote is the difference. So I think the concern is not just by the anecdote, Todd, but that the possibility that the outcome of an election might be tilted by something inappropriate. People just say, come on, let's remove the margin or the possibility of error here.
Well, but I think we also know that we saw Acorn's activities and how they were running around registering people to vote who were incoherent, who were living on the street, and they would use made-up names. At one point they picked the names from the New York Yankees roster and were registering people under those names so they could bring them back to vote later, presumably.
Who knew Derek Jeter was going to be voting in South Boston?
Here's somebody who says he's got the answer to this. Ralph Zazula joins us now on WRKO. He's a Tea Party member, I believe. Ralph, welcome.
Good morning. So the question is there any hard data? I'll tell you, I work with Show ID to Vote. I spend a lot of time with Tom Weaver. He's a great guy to work with, by the way. And we have not really seen any data that anybody has put together, but there is some anecdotal information out of Indiana. Indiana passed the toughest Show ID to Vote law in the nation, and they accept only state IDs. They won't even accept a federal ID. But when they were passing that, the politicians would get up and ask people, anyone who does not have an ID, come forward and tell us your story. They did it on radio talk shows. They did it in live appearances. Not one person called in and said, we're from a nursing home, we have no IDs. Not one person stood up in the crowd and said, me. Just never happened.
How long ago did they pass their law in Indiana?
I think that was about 3 years ago.
So it's been in effect for a couple of years.
Yes.
Is there any evidence that they've that vote totals have gone down, or some kind of data that would indicate this thing is blocking some sort of voter activity?
None that I'm aware of.
So we're left with anecdotes and the perception that because there are holes in our system, that people are driving trucks through it.
Well, there are trucks being driven through. Whether it's just being done by people is probably a good question. Will this stop an organized attempt at being fraudulent? Will it stop somebody from a nursing home? Those are two very different
Ralph Zazula, appreciate the call. I think the answer to the caller who was wondering if there's any proof of this is that we need to have confidence in our electoral system. There is widespread lack of confidence and a perception based on everyone's experience that to fraudulently vote is a really easy thing to do. And to vote in multiple communities is a really easy thing to do without even, just you move from one community to the next. You could be on the last community's rolls for a couple of years.
Text message here says, again, by anecdote or, secondhand testimony, Lawrence has had voter fraud problems for many, many years. Ben.
Joe Battenfeld joins us next on 680 WRKO.
Hey, guys, how's it going? This is a great topic, by the way, the voter ID law. And some of you said before, Lawrence has had voter ID problems. I mean, look at the people they elect there, too, some of the people they elect. So I think they're going to definitely look at this in the legislature, but if a Republican is sponsoring it, probably not a great chance of passing.
Just simply because the Democrats are opposed to good government.
Right. Well, they won't want a Republican, number one, to take credit for it, and there's enough people there who still believe somehow that showing your ID is somehow, losing part of your civil liberties or something like that, which is, you know how many times you have to show your ID in the course of a day? Not just to buy beer or to do anything. Almost, you have to show your ID. Go to LL Bean and buy something. Wait, you show your ID.
To go into the State House for a visit, you have to give up all your civil liberties.
That's right. I know. So I don't quite understand